เคเราก็จะค่อยๆทำไปเลยนะครับผมในเรื่องของ Green Coffee ทีนี้ Green Coffee ของเราก็ต้องมาลองดูเนื้อหากันก่อนว่า Green Coffee รอบนี้มีอะไรบ้างนะครับผมในส่วนของเนื้อหาที่เราต้องเรียนรู้นั่นก็คือเขาก็บอกว่าโอเคเราต้องใช้ทั้งหมด14ชั่วโมงโอ้เมื่อวานเราใช้ Sensory มาเกิน14ชั่วโมงแล้วแหละตอนนี้เราต้องเข้า Green Coffee เพิ่มเติมอีกนิดนึงนะครับนอกจาก Green Coffee ก็เป็น recommendation เหมือนกันจะมีเรื่องของ written exam ที่พูดแล้วเหมือนกันนะครับ practical exam ก็เหมือนกันนะครับผมในการทำงานจะเห็นว่า practical exam เขาเกือบ2ชั่วโมง3ชั่วโมงนะค่อนข้างที่จะเยอะ Green Coffee มี practical ให้ทำเยอะมากในเรื่องของการหล่อนกาแฟการเกรดดิ้งกาแฟบางกิจกรรมคือให้นั่งเกรดและคัดกาแฟแบบ2ตัวอะไรค่อนข้างที่จะเยอะอยู่นะครับผมในเรื่องของการเรียนรู้ว่า Green Coffee เนี่ยเหมาะกับใครเหมาะที่เราจะเรียนรู้เรื่องของ botanical agronomy เรื่องของสภาพแวดล้อมต่างๆที่ส่งผลต่อรายรับรายได้หรือราคาของกาแฟ Green Coffee รอบนี้มันดูเหมือนเราจะคุยกันเรื่องของ sensory ไปเยอะมากนะครับ 2-3 วันเพราะว่าeverybody is focused on green coffee on sensory นะครับ like how the sensory is แต่ตรงเนี้ย green coffee is all about trading usually นะwe were talking about a lot on trading and transaction and quality ตรงเนี้ยคือ how do you focus on trading the coffee and make the coffee become consistent during the trading นะครับผมit is recorded ขอบคุณครับผมAnd then the topic that we have discussed is about 9 topics. So today we will discover about 8 topics. Tomorrow we will cover 1 topic if we can try. But the point of the topic that we will discuss is very basic at the very first one because botany, world production, coffee farming, this is something that we already almost discussed in foundation level. But there is a few numbers I want you to get to focus on. And then also processing, this has already been covered in the foundation level. But there are a few things at the intermediate level that you need to know, like the moisture content and like what you should be careful about OTA, you see in topic number 10, and how do they grading the coffee. And what part of the coffee chain creates certain defect. Aside from that, we will talk about a lot on the market contract and storage requirement, certification, decaffeination, and green coffee venue operation, which already covered that. The interesting thing is sometimes we, on sensory session, we already talk about sensory, we grading the coffee, we make coffee is 80 plus, 82 plus score. But the problem is when we do the grading, it's good. But when we start trading that coffee, we do transportation, when we put on a ship, we put on a cargo. How do they track that coffee? How do you protect that coffee for the flavor, for the taste to be consistent? How do you keep that coffee fresh and dry a long time? That is very important because we are in the producing country. When we exporting coffee is very important to control all these variables that could impact on your on their final sensory before it get to the clients. That's why it's very important. There are some number or things that we have to talk about as moisture content and water activity, which we can cover about that tomorrow. Today, I just want to get whatever basic thing that we already know about, get through it. And if you want to get too deeper, just go. Don't forget that we already have the recorded version already. Go through that as well. That will help as well. So just to know that species variety that we already covered in foundation level is there is Arabica, there is Robusta, and there is Liberica. And Robusta is a coffee that is able to tolerate a hotter climate, which is why Robusta today is becoming one of the coffee that is being breeding a lot with Arabica coffee. They want to breed with Arabica coffee so that hybrid Arabica Robusta can tolerate the hotter climate of global warming that we're having lately. So that is one of the reasons they start to breeding Catimore and breeding Catimore with some other Arabica to make it less Catimore-like. more Arabica like, and only try to choose the traits that they want. That's what they call selective breeding. For example, they want to, sometimes when you breed, it doesn't come out the same thing that you want. You need to continue breeding them to generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, and generation 4 or 5. The category that is being used in Thailand right now is the 4th generation, I think, F4 already. So they start to continue breeding that. So to do that, you can enjoy this information from Junior Barista course that was already recorded. It's quite a lot. So that will talk about the general knowledge on coffee, the coffee seed, the coffee itself, physiology of the coffee, the varieties, and certain how they pick the coffee. Okay, so that is already included in the video. But if we cover under SCA want to cover more and say that right now there is 124 recognized species and it's getting more and more. Lately, actually, the number actually rise to about 130 now. It depends on how you want to calculate. It went up to 130s because there are some researchers found this coffee in the forest. There are some researchers breeding a new type of coffee. So the species keep going up to about 130. But they say 130 or 131, depend if you consider Excelsa and Liberica to be the same varieties or not. I think in foundation level, we discussed about Excelsa, yes, with Liberica coffee. Interesting thing is with that 124 species, 55 of these coffee species are from Madagascar. Madagascar is the place where, not a lot of people discover until lately. So a lot of the variety that was started in Madagascar is pretty unique. But well, since it was discovered lately, not a lot of people planting it yet. We will talk about what other planting, the coffee that was planting a lot is pretty much Typica, Caturra, and Bourbon, and Yellow Bourbon, and Catamore. Those are the varieties that plant a lot. And believe it or not, in this section, you will find that Robusta actually found it later. We find Arabica first. Humans found Arabica first, and humans start cultivation Arabica first. Then later on, they found, oh, there is a variety called Robusta. Oh, Robusta is so easier to grow, which is one of the reasons that is why we are not keeping up with why Robusta is not keeping up with the Arabica at the moment, but I'm sure they will gain the speed later on. So the distribution of the coffee go to places just like in the lecture. Just make sure you watched it, okay? We do not want to spend so much time on the species. Oh, but I want you to know that when people say Coffea canephora, they actually mean Robusta. And if they say Robusta, it is Coffea canephora. It's the same thing, okay? It's the same thing. There's nothing different between it. It's the same species, the same name. Some people say a difference, like no, it's the same thing. And the nowadays, oh, sorry, Siri, nope. I want to show copy, import. You should have this one in your folder as well, where you see all this coffee, the coffee tree, right? This coffee tree, as you can see, everything on the right is sort of purple shaded, gray on the right. Anything on the right of the pink are variety that is hybrid between Arabica and Robusta, okay? But they are declared as Arabica in the market. So when you talk about that sense and they said, oh, Arabica production is 60% more, 60% in the market, why only 40% is Robusta coffee? When they say that, the funny thing is, well, actually, they are descendant of Robusta, okay? So if we consider Robusta descendant, therefore Robusta maybe it's 50-50% in the market production. But right now, anything that has trace of Robusta and hybrid with Arabica, they consider Arabica coffee, 100% Arabica coffee to be, that's what they consider. Then we also talking about the species. Arabica is actually descendant of Canephora and Eugenioides, and therefore, hey, before they become Arabica coffee, it was once a Robusta too. It was a Robusta before. Breeding with Eugenioides, and it become Arabica coffee. Okay. So this is a new research that is coming up, but this file was already, this research was done in like 2018. So this is a 4 years old already. 2018, yep. So on this slide, if you enjoy reading it, there is more information at the bottom, like what variety, what does it made of. All of this information you can zoom in. You can zoom in to see more of the breeding, what it's made from. But if you want more, coffee research, coffee variety. World Coffee Research has it too. Where is it? Coffee World. Here is another source of information that you can find on coffee and the variety of the coffee. There's so many variety of this coffee, and they start breeding more and more and more. And here they would grade the coffee by the size of it and by the leaf tip, by the bean size. And then they also suggest what is potential yield. We have so many things that you can look at. So in case you start wanting to plant coffee and wanting to select the breed that, for your location, maybe you want to look it up on this research from World Coffee Research to see which breed should be suitable for you. Because, for example, like they tell you here, choosing the right variety based on altitude. Okay, low altitude, medium altitude, and high altitude. There are different kind of coffee that you should produce it from. So that's what they tell you. Or you want based on performance. So that is, even planting the coffee is a science as well. So there's so much thing we can play with. So this is one of the books, Arabica coffee varieties. So right now, Canephora and Eugenioides, presumable the parent of the coffee Arabica, which people do not believe. I mean, like, wow, really Robusta in Arabica? How is that possible? But it really makes sense. I suggest you to watch the video because I talk a lot on that video and share information on how the coffee was discovered, how they evolve and naturally selected and evolve into something else. It's a long story. It's a very long story. The two variety that is mostly as commercial is Typica and Bourbons. Okay, and that is because they are the very first two variety that was founded a long time ago. Okay, so that was the very first two that was founded. So vocabulary term, cultivar means human cultivation of that single varieties. But if we say variety, they usually relate to naturally breeding. Okay, so if human breed them, we call them cultivar. If they naturally evolve, we would call them varieties. So that is one way they use to describe the coffee variety as well. Okay, next one. Okay, let's take a look on the website. So here I will show you where you can get information on the coffee. It's called World of Coffee Research. So at World of Coffee Research, all the document Kun Kamsong already mentioned, there is so many things that you can download from the website, like very useful, like very useful, and so much to learn. I mean, if you have all the time and you don't know what to do, here, read this. It's a lot. It's very fun. Even though you look like there is a lot of research on this, believe it or not, this is still very little when we compare to another commodity products such as rice or corn or potato or apples or something else. Coffee research is only this little when compared to apple, when compared to corn. Okay, that's why we still need everybody's support on coffee, which is, I don't know why. That is one of the very interesting fact. Well, yeah, coffee. นะครับ
May
So,
I ask a
yes.
question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I only listen that you are saying that the other day you have cupping doing on the Robusta variety things. According to the variety, cupping should be done separately, Arabica or Robusta or Liberica, things like that. Or we can do together.
No, separate, because we would score them separately. Arabica would have their own cupping form. Robusta have their own cupping form. Liberica should have their own cupping form too.
I see.
But because if you put them on the same table, we cannot compare them. It will not be fair. Because Robusta would have a lot of body and maybe long aftertaste. So you get higher score on the body. But if you compare that on the same table that is Arabica, and Arabica has a lower body, then it's not fair, right? So even though the cupping form on Arabica and Robusta is even totally different cupping form. I think it's in the directory to Robusta, find Robusta cupping form. Find Robusta. I think this one already provided. Sure, in the back. See? Totally different. Fragrance, aroma, flavor, aftertaste the same. And then suddenly there is salty and acid. So no, we cannot use Arabica and Robusta on the same table.
Yeah. Again, I just find the word in find Robusta. Is this different from the Norman Robusta? Because recently people are using the word find Robusta now, especially in Indonesia. But it is different from the Norman Robusta that we are growing in Pak Song area, things like that.
Hey, your coffee is fine Robusta too.
So what the difference between fine Robusta and Norman Robusta?
Well, fine Robusta, that's the same thing as your coffee at Pak Song. พี่คำสอนยิ้มเอาเลยพี่คำสอน
I thought. So then we have to add fine Robusta to our Robusta as well, not just only. Yeah. Good.
But the point is to get
Robusta. Okay.
ใช่ but to get to the point of fine Robusta, that means you have to pass the same thing as specialty coffee. You need to pass 350 grams of your green coffee need to pass as specialty without defect from category 1, with some defect from category 2 on the 350 grams of coffee. First, you need to pass that. Then, when they roasted, they must have, for Robusta, they are allowed to have certain Quaker, like there is this form here, green grading form. Okay. Oh, sorry. There are certain amount of Quaker that you are allowed to, okay? You are allowed to have for Robusta. I will show you in a little bit. And then after, when you taste them, they need to have at least 80 plus score to declare itself as a fine Robusta. Which is declared here. Let me see, fine. Yep, here. So there are steps for us to take to become a fine Robusta coffee. So there's Q coffee. That's the coffee I mentioned, and Q Robusta grader. Let me see. Here, principle to become a fine Robusta. Okay, page 11. Oh, yeah, I highlight for you. Right. There you go. Principle, only full equivalent defect are used. Fine Robusta sample must have 0. See? Fine Robusta must have 0 category 1 full defect and no more than 5 category 2 full defects. And then the premium Robusta, which, another level would have, like specialty coffee and commercial grade premium coffee. So we can call fine Robusta good coffee. And if you have more defect, it becomes premium Robusta. Then if it has even more defect, it becomes commercial Robusta. So even for Robusta, I have 3 levels. At first, it is the same with Arabica. At the beginning of the CQI project, they did not start with specialty coffee. They start with fine Arabica. Okay, they start with fine Arabica to keep pushing people into the direction of making specialty Arabica coffee. So once that fine Arabica come up and that premium Arabica start to fade away, it becomes specialty coffee because farmers are able to develop, and specialty is a little bit too hard. So the fine version is a little bit easier. So that is how they proceed with the CQI. So grading, same thing, 200 grams, green coffee and 100 grams of roasted coffee. And yeah, that is how you do it. And specification, there is fine, premium, and commercials. Okay. So a lot of things that we have to do. That's a different, like the ratio is different. Usually for Arabica, it's 8.25. For Robusta, you 8.75. Even for cupping protocol is different, right? Cupping protocol is also different too. Everything else pretty much the same. So to declare yourself as a fine Robusta is a lot of work as well. So on this book, is good book to read, and you can print and share it out to everybody from CQI. So what else do we need to talk about? Specialty species of Arabica coffee, they start evolving like 500 years. I think it has been evolving for more than 1,000 years. But we found it back in 1500, 1,500, yeah. And then 1500. And then from there, we start selecting the variety that's suitable to us. And then from there, they slowly evolve. The variety that is suitable to us, we will talk about that later on. Okay, so I believe everybody already know all coffee, not all cherries. It's not always red. Some yellow, some orange, some are pink. Okay, we have a purple one. Okay, not all coffee, not all cherry are red. And they said Ethiopia coffee usually associated with higher cup quality, but has lower yield. Has lower yields. Okay, so we do not want that. We want that. We want quality, but we want the yield, right? So at first, people want the coffee for the yield only, for the productivity only. They don't care about the quality. They just want how much they can produce in a year. because that is the money. That's where the money is, because in the colonization, the investor, they colonize, they produce, they roast it dark. Nobody know that there is floralness. They don't know the somatic in the coffee. They don't know sugar browning in the coffee. They just burn the coffee. And once they burn the coffee, that is how they drink it back then, just dark with sugar. So when they breeding the coffee, they start breeding coffee for its, for it traits that it can produce more. So we breeding Cadimore, okay? The Portuguese, they breed the Cadimore so that it can produce more coffee. They're breeding between Caturra and Hybrid Dirty Moor. We already mentioned that, okay? And there are many places that start to do a lot of breeding as well. I talk a lot on that breeding as well in the video already recorded. So then we also talk about this, creator of a coffee. They say Africa is the creator of coffee, where Arabica usually come from Ethiopian or Robusta, actually originate in Uganda, okay, and West Africa, which is why that Robusta form. This one is Uganda. Interesting. Fine Robusta form is a standard that was developed in collaboration with UCDA, Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Okay, that's where they find Robusta. So that's where the Robusta standard was created. I think that's pretty makes sense, right? So you have to understand Uganda. If I want to do coffee on Robusta, maybe I should go to Uganda. They started in 1991 on that. Let me close this TPP. And there is a session on the video that just looked like this. On this map, I spent about an hour or 40 minutes, 50 minutes to talk about how the coffee move from one location to the next and how they evolve. It's very fun. And as a barista, for example, BB, right? Or BB, as a barista, it's very fun to know where's the coffee from and how it was evolved, how it's evolved itself, how people start breeding the coffee to make the coffee taste certain way, to make the coffee produce certain way. That is very fun because customer like to listen to the story. Customer want to know where it come from. We will not focus so much on this because it's on the video. I want everybody to watch it like repeatedly. It's fun.
So that's pity.
Also,
that's pity they don't have drawing on how the coffee brought to Laos and Thailand as well on your map. Just show.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you can see nothing on Thai and Laos. Yeah, even Vietnam.
We can, don't forget that this one is like right now Thailand is not on the map of coffee belt because we are not exporting coffee. And when we are not exporting enough coffee, therefore we do not have the data that we are an exporter, but we produce coffee. Okay.
But Vietnam, unlike Vietnam, you see they are quite big coffee exporter, but they are not on the map.
Well, this map is not updated, I probably think.
Okay.
But there is a lot of things that is done, and this is the map that a lot of people usually see, when they go to the coffee shop or some of the classes, or even when I do the Zurich University classes on the origin, they use this map as well. And if we want to see where the coffee go, usually we have to follow the track of colonization of the how the British, how the French, how the Portuguese, and how the Dutch colonizing Southeast Asia. So Vietnam is French, right? Lao is French as well. I think, right? Cambodia.
Yes. Vietnam,
Yeah.
Cambodia, Laos,
Burma
Indochina
is English. Yeah.
was
Mm.
French colony.
Yeah, Malaysia, Hong Kong, everything. So we usually coffee is go with the colonizer. And that is why French, they are pretty good at coffee, right? They are the very first that do the coffee along with the Dutch. So Vietnam, where they have very good place and the French have the informations. That's why Vietnam can be number 2 in exporting coffee in the world, right? So we can look at the data. And there's also another video that you should look on is on the Master Barista courses. And it will talk about all the varieties, different varieties and how the varieties actually evolve on how we select the coffee variety. For example, we breeding pacas with Maracohite to make a big pacamara because people like to buy big coffee beans because big coffee bean is easier to roast, simple as that. And they believe big coffee bean would have more nutrition, therefore more sweetness. And there is a lot of reason when people start breeding it. Right now, for example, there is a Maracasia, Maracatura. They were just breeding Maracatura, Maracohite, breeding with a lot of things to make that variety larger because people want something larger to roast easier. So that is one way. And also larger bean people pay higher price, which is why when I buy coffee, Colombia Supremo, screen size 18 and above, right? If you sell your coffee, usually most of your coffee will be graded and sorted based on screen size. That's the very first step that you're gonna happen in your processing factory. So size is one of the things that will be used. But then sometimes size is a problem. If we declare everything by the size of the coffee, some country like Guatemala, where the bean is not as large, but good density, so they have to have a new standard for their coffee. We will talk about that in a little bit. So this is just a summary of that long video, pretty much that, okay, the Typica was spread around the world, and Robusta was cultivated much later on here. It's like way later. They only found it back in 1890s, but we found Arabica since 1500s and 1600s. So that means Arabica has 300 years in advance, before we found Canafora. So 300 years is a long time. What else? Climate already done. Alrighty, let me talk about that is already done in foundation level. So, okay. I think one of the exercise and activity that we will do next week is Robusta and Arabica, the sensory difference. But it's pretty obvious, size and shape, the blending, and what Arabica actually tastes like, what Robusta normally tastes like. The Robusta, I think we roasted some of them or not, we'll check again. But this is very just an activity, not on the exam. Briefly on word production. That's why we want to do coffee. This is the number that I mentioned earlier, the 60-40 split. As mentioned, it is 60% Arabica because they declare anything that has Robusta hybrid in there as Arabica too. So, it's just numbers. We have Mr. Kamson, twin, come in again. On the chat, you can see that Mr. Kamson is providing you a few links and also cupping form that, in the chat.
Just in case. Just in case.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Cupping crap. So nice to know Brazil, the most producer of coffee. Well, Yeah, obviously, because Brazil is so large, and they are the largest Arabica producer. However, Vietnam is the largest Robusta producer, even though they are the second, I think the second or the third coffee producer in the world. And also, if we're talking about process, natural process is pretty much in Brazil. On the other hand, wash process would be a lot in Colombia. Colombia do a lot of process. Okay? And when we start talking about statistic in coffee, they would say million of bags. And that definition of bags means 60 kilo. Okay? They don't care if in Colombia it's 69 kilo or Guatemala is 50 kilo or Brazil is 60 kilo. Set that number, no? Just the number. Satitia. They usually focus on 60 kilo bag. That's the number. For example, here coffee production 64 million bags. 64 million bag of 60 kilo. If you look at this number, it is amazing to see that Brazil produced 38% and Vietnam is half of Brazil. And then Colombia is half of Vietnam. And then everything just going half and half and half, something like that. Therefore, Vietnam is not even close to Brazil. It's just half. But at least they are number 2, while Colombia is number 3. Then this is an infographic that I like to share. Very nice infographic that why coffee costs the way it is. First, when you buy the coffee, there is a cost of growing, right? Even Brazil is like the top producing country, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, and Ethiopia, and there is a cost per pound. So that costs about $0.07 that will be put to the cost of your coffee cup. Slowly, I will continue adding it up. Once you get that coffee from the farm, there are another cost. For example, certain administrations here, roasting, lease and interest on the loan, certifications, shipping, from one location to the origin to the destinations, packaging is a lot of cost, 0.3. Labor cost is a lot. Shrink loss. It is something that you should consider about it, the shrink loss. And that when you get 100 kilo, you're not gonna produce 100 kilo of roasted bean because you lost something. You lost some profile searching along the way. You lost your weight loss because 100 kilo would only give you 80 grams of coffee, 80 kilo of coffee at the end because you lost about 20%. But this is the interesting number, as we already showed last time, that these are the countries, they are top exporting countries. And look at them, Switzerland, Italy, Germany, French, and Netherlands, right? They are top exporting coffee countries. Roasted coffee, okay? Roasted coffee. But none of these countries grow any coffee at all. I would expect, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam to become the top exporting roasted coffee because we produce our own coffee. Or even Brazil or Colombia, but no. It seems that Europeans are the top exporting country, okay? So that is why coffee is a big business and there is a lot. Most of the research are done in here. For example, Switzerland, they do a lot of research on varieties. Italy, they do a lot of research on espresso machine and extractions. Germany, they do a lot of research on roasting machine. French to the Netherlands to all of them. They do a lot of research and a lot of investment on the coffee because that is their revenue. That is their money. Then when we open a coffee shop, okay, by the time you get to the coffee shop, you get the labor, another the cost on the labor, cost on the markup price, marketing, utility list, and everything else. By the time it gets to your final cups, it costs you $2.8 per cups for a 16 ounce of brew coffee. That's why coffee is it's not supposed to be expensive. But when we look at all that cost, then you start to, people don't understand why coffee is so expensive. Like 90 baht, 100 baht. Oh, expensive. Have you ever looked into behind the scene? Nobody really see behind the scene. They just see, oh, coffee from the farm. I don't know, sherry kilo la 80 baht. I don't know, like per kilo sherry, 20 baht per kilo sherry. You get a kilo of sherry and that's only 20 baht. But why it turned into 1 cup of 80 baht? They don't understand. They don't understand. They don't see that step. So this is something I want you to, as a trained taster and, as coffee enthusiast and coffee lovers and, a business person, to share this vision with your clients. Say, oh, there is a lot of work being done in coffee. And your net profit is very little. If you want to come into the coffee business, sale price, total cost, tax, and everything else, or your net profit is just not even 50 cents. Yeah. So I heard that Kunwa still want to do business in coffee. Do you still want to do business? If you now already know it's only make like 15 baht per cup, and you invest 3 million baht in the business. So how many cups I have to sell? That's 3 million divided by 15 baht. That's like, I don't know, 200,000 cup. 200,000 cups. Oh, that's a lot of cups, right? That is why Serena and Bibi and everyone else, please talk to Kunwa about doing business in coffee. Do you really want to jump into coffee business? Mr. Kamson, if we don't do coffee, what should we do?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to
Please
say.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's it's funny you said that because that's the real life. Yes, there's a lot of cost, and doing business in coffee is not as easy, and exactly as per you described, right? But that's not what people want to hear. So once I try to, talk about these issues, all the cost and everything, and what people want to hear is, no, but it's good for farmers. They just want to hear that, even when you talk about the increased cost of whatever, that's the story that they want to hear. The main point is that, yeah,
it's good for farmers.
It's good for farmers. So, but they don't want to hear that after that, you have some cost related to the cost of coffee increased by 100%. Then you have this cost. That's why the price of your cup of coffee increased. They don't want to hear that. They just want to say, oh yeah, but it's good for farmers. At least they have.
This is not like Mr. Kamson say something like that, right? It's good for farmer. Just do it.
Yes, of course that there are reasons why we are when I speak that
sure 44 cents.
Yeah, because we did the study and also according to many research that a sort of from the whole value, from the whole margin in the coffee go to the farmer as the one who in the upper stream.
Yeah,
that's very small, less than 20% of the margin. That's the fact. And this we did this for the Lao value chain. But of course that's why we try to promote the domestic consumption, because those figures based from the exporting of the green bean as a commodity grade. And that's why we try to promote the domestic consumption, because when we have the consumption increase in the country, we do believe the margin from the value chain It's going to the Lao people.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter the farmer, processor, buyer, trader, but that's come to the Lao society. That's from the big picture. That's why we come to, we join the team, we create the networking. Of course, that we cannot consume the whole Lao coffee. We cannot consume what we have been producing, the whole that, because the consumption in Lao very small at this moment. And based on the rough estimation, Lao people consume coffee less than 0.1 kg per capita. It means that we have a huge potential of, of increasing the domestic market. That's what from the big picture.
We need to make a movie on coffee, like in Thailand, But I want you to watch movie, and you will see that we are being brainwashed every day in every media coffee. I see a lot of American movie. They always hold coffee cups. Even though on my kid, which is in like kindergarten, เด็กอนุบาล their cartoon has coffee. I'm like, why is cartoon has coffee shop? Coffee is sneakingly in our society every day. นะครับผม I'm sure it will be there. Yes, Kim, do you agree with your 0.001 capita coffee, or you drink a lot?
I drink a lot, maybe too much. So yes, that's a very interesting and issue, and it would worth one separate discussion for sure. But I totally agree with Mr. Kamsan, and we are not among the Lao coffee lovers for nothing. We share some visions for coffee development in Laos. Also about what Serena said, it's very interesting to know that even Sinuk, which is one of the major distributor or network of coffee shop. Sorry.
Wow.
I just had
Sinuk is a major network coffee shop.
Yeah,
distribute a lot of coffee.
But furthermore, even though we can develop and increase domestic consumption, at the end, if the commercial partnerships between the local suppliers and the roasters and all the actors of the value chain don't apply a series of requirements, we will have the same mechanism as commodity markets. And this may happen with the arrival of big multinational brands and so on in Laos. So what we are trying to do, and Todd is the best company or SME which applies the principles we are testing. If we manage actually to make each stakeholder or supply chain commit into one model, benefiting to everybody, I really believe that we can create an alternative model to that. So I will not speak too long. I would just recommend you, if you haven't, or the participant, to read one very interesting book about that. It's called The Coffee Paradox by David Daviron, and it's really interesting to learn and to understand why across the decades the price of the cup is getting higher and higher, while the final incomes for the farmer is decreasing every year. So that's the model we want to avoid for Laos, actually.
Which one? This one? Coffee Paradox.
Coffee Paradox, yeah.
That's the one?
Yeah.
Cool. Good one. Excellent. Safe. Thank you. And Bibi, I want to ask Bibi, do you see your, return on investment in any time in 3-5 years? อยู่ไหมครับ Bibi?
ค่ะอยู่ค่ะ
when we do calculation, what is your ROI? How many year return on investments? When you invested and you think it should be returning like 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year?
อ่าคิดว่าคันในเรื่องของธุรกิจมันน่าจะต้องเป็น long term โดยในระยะ1 ค่ะ 2 ปีน่าจะยังบ่ทันเห็นกำไรหรือว่าอีหยังเทื่อโดยคันเรื่องธุรกิจมันต้องเบิ่งไปไกลๆโดย
ใช่ ต้องเบิ่งไปไกลๆแต่ตอนนี้เอาเงินจากไหนใช้ล่ะถูกปะ มันก็จะ that's the thing about business that we have to consider นะครับผมว่ามันจะเป็นยังไงเนาะ Good พี่ปรเมศครับในการทำธุรกิจที่ดีมันจะต้องรีเทิร์นกี่ปีครับ
ก็ตามสูตรเลยมันก็เขาก็ไม่ควรจะเกินตามนักธุรกิจเขาก็ไม่ให้ควรเกิน1 จุดเขาเรียกว่านะปี 8 เดือนนะครับแต่ว่าก็พูดกันถั่วๆก็2 ปีก็ควรจะรีเทิร์นนะครับมันก็มีเรื่องปัจจัยเรื่องของต่างๆเรื่องค่าเงินเรื่องเงินเฟ้อเรื่องอะไรต่างๆนะครับผม
ครับ
อันนี้ก็ขึ้นอยู่ที่ถ้าสูตรถ้าเราคำนึงถึงสูตรการ return investment เนี่ยก็บางทีก็สโคปของการทำร้านกาแฟก็อาจจะต้องเล็กลงด้วยครับผมก็เดี๋ยวขอแชร์นิดก็ขออนุญาตที่ผมไม่เก่งภาษาอังกฤษแต่ผมฟังเข้าใจหมดนะครับ
เข้าใจครับแชร์ได้เลยครับ
ไม่เก่งเรื่องพูดก็คืออย่างผมทำหอมกาแฟเนี่ยลงทุนที่ 200,000 บาทครับรวมทุกอย่างเลยครับผมสาขาแรกอยู่ที่หน้าธนาคารการค้าก็คือสาขาแม่ของสาขาแม่เหมือนกับอยู่หน้าธนาคารกสิกรสาขาใหญ่นะครับผมอยู่หน้าธนาคารการค้าต่างประเทศลาวสาขาแม่นะครับครับก็ตรงนั้นนี่คือวันละถ้าโควิดนี่200ถ้าก่อนโควิดเนี่ย200ขึ้นครับผมมันก็ถ้าพูดเรื่องรีเทิร์นเนี่ยปีเดียวก็รีเทิร์นครับผมแต่ว่าก็ถ้าเกิดใครทำร้านกาแฟเนี่ยก็ถ้าเกิดคำนึงในเรื่องของสูตรการที่บอกว่า ROI เนี่ยก็สโคปของการทำร้านกาแฟมันก็จะมีความคำนึงถึงขนาดการเลือกเครื่องชงกาแฟหรือว่าการคิดราคากาแฟต่างๆในร้านอะไรประมาณนี้ครับผม
ใช่ครับใช่เลยขอบคุณครับเพราะฉะนั้น so what we are saying about คุณปรเมศ mentioned that everything that if you want to make profit and to have a return on investment according to the formula of like a 1 to 2 years everything should be considered like how much you want to invest how like what is the limitation of that investment don't just be like our academy like our academy we just buy everything that we want to know we want to learn you know so the more we invest every investment that we make that means the return investment will keep longer นะครับ so if you jump into coffee business there is 2 things there is crazy people and there's crazier people so because we only make very margin as BB said I don't know maybe 1, 2 to 3 years don't even know if your return is gonna make any return yet but she's still doing it and she opening another branch ใช่ไหมSo a normal people would not do coffee business. The normal people would probably do something that is, you know, clear cut on the return on investments. But coffee, I see coffee in Thailand. People invested 2 million on equipments only, and then like, okay, 20 baht per cup, 2 million. That means you need to sell a lot of coffee. In Thailand, where a lot of people just doing something else and come here for a selfie and photo. So that is one thing that, you know, has to consider on their income on coffee. Good ขอบคุณมากครับทั้ง4 ท่านทั้ง 5 ท่านนะครับผม Oh I see Cindy enter okay ไหน Cindy ก็มาแล้ว I will you know just go through a few more slides and we will finish today. Okay, just 1 second. So just very quickly, that price is always different and also based on a lot of reasons like demand, climate, varieties, you know, everything, the production change every year. Even though freight costs, this is something really new during COVID. I find this freight cost is totally new to my business because they say like, oh, because the freight costs charge higher, shipping costs suddenly become more expensive. So I think that it's just something that we have to think about, shipping coffee. This is origin and QC. Okay. Just a few more photo and infographic is this one. If you take a look, as you can see, majority of the coffee keep saying that the top 10 producing country is in the coffee belt. However, most of the people want people to believe that coffee belt is a good place to grow coffee because coffee belt has the lowest labor cost when comparing to the outside of the coffee belt, right? So if we are in the coffee belt and yeah, we keep promoting the coffee is good to grow in this region, yes, we can control the price. The price will not go any higher. That means that the initial cost of the coffee will be low. On the other hand, for example, California is all the way up here. California is now starting planting coffee, but their price is super high. It's like 20,000 baht per kilo, I think, or like pretty expensive, $800, about $800 US per kilo. So it's really depend because in the state, yes, it's colder, you can plant coffee, but the land cost, the labor cost, the investment is much higher. Therefore, your initial cost of coffee will be higher. So you gotta be careful on the investment, but they have their own market. I'm not sure if we already mentioned about them before, which is their organic, I think. There's Good Land Organic, yeah. They call Good Land Organic Coffee. They are first initiative that planting something that cannot be grown in California. Oh, that was not really normally in California, like passion fruit, Carvia Lam, dragon fruit, and Noina. I think this is Noina. So at that initiative start to pan out into coffee. So that coffee grow, like they started planting coffee, and that coffee business become a new project. It's called French coffee. French coffee start with Good Land Organic in California, where they start to where they plant, you know, different variety of coffee there. So if we want to plant coffee, if we want to invest in coffee, you see that the variety that they usually plant is Geisha, Lolina, something very expensive, something that very, very focused on the quality rather than the quantity, okay? Because colder climate will take you longer time to ripe. Therefore, you would get lower yield on the coffee. So that is also something to consider as well when you plant coffee. There's so many things that are interesting here. So that is some place that we can learn in California if you go there. See, they're planting coffee in a terrace. Very nice, right? Like very orderly, systematically in San Diego. I think this is, yeah, pretty much close to San Diego. This is the map. I live here. I live in Los Angeles, like 605 and 10 freeway here. And last time I went there, I want to visit them, but it was during Easter, so everybody closed, nobody open. Yeah, Calabas, California, they have information too, like where and where. Now it's going all the way up there. Wow, Morro Bay. But then the cost would be pretty high. So why did they do it? Because I mean, I think that has something to do with if you overproduction of oranges and avocado or olive or something else in the area, the price of orange go down. So they need another commodity products that will support the market. And coffee here is pretty good too. That is one interesting story on the coffee. So the most consumption per capita. This is our producing country. We already talk about it. Sorry, Cap. This one is constant fluctuation of the coffee. Usually, global warming caused our coffee to go up 100% already because there's not enough coffee in Brazil. And when there's not enough coffee in Brazil, they start, buying all the coffee in Asia, like Burma, Myanmar. All the coffee was bought by some big company. Thai, a lot of people just buy all of them, or even Lao, I believe. And that already starts in last year. Another interesting thing is the process and our perception as specialty. In specialty coffee, we say natural process is sweet and I prefer natural process coffee versus wash process coffee, because in our mind, natural process is sweeter, more burrier. So when we buy coffee, Ethiopia, I want Ethiopia natural. Colombia, if I can, I want Colombia natural process. This is the perception of our specialty coffee. On the other hand, in the market, natural process is being produced a lot as a commercial coffee, especially Brazil. From this graph is the data that they collected last year. You see that where are the years? Oh, here. There's a lighter one and then there's a darker one. The darker one is from 2021, which is last year, right? The Brazilian natural. In 2020 and 2021, Brazil produced a lot natural process. And then suddenly due to some crisis, they cannot produce enough. Okay? They cannot produce enough. That is why we have a lot of problem with coffee at the moment. But as you can see, Robusta, usually the trend of Robusta going down and down and down, right? The trend of Robusta. For some reasons, now Robusta pick up like a lot, Therefore, a lot of people start accepting Robusta as a coffee and they start replacing Robusta in the market and start blending it more. Robusta at the moment, most of them are natural process Robusta anyway. So specialty with natural process and commercial and natural process is really non-related. On the other hand, if we talk about automized like wash process from other country, they start picking up some other numbers as well. Colombia start reducing, production getting less and less. So Robusta need to pick up the the missing pieces. So this one has already mentioned already. The most producing coffee in Arabica is Brazil, number 1, Colombia is number 2, and number 3 for Honduras. This is Arabica only, Arabica only, not the coffee production. We talk about Arabica only. And if it's Robusta, the Vietnam will be number 1, Brazil number 2, and number 3 is Indonesia. So as you can see, that's why the definition of fine Robusta had to make your coffee, because Indonesia is number 3. How do you make people come and buy your coffee more? Oh, say fine Robusta. Yeah, maybe people won't buy it more. But Vietnam has a good coffee too. Brazil and Colombia, So this one, you already guys see it already. As I mentioned, most of the money making is in Europe. None, they didn't even plant any coffee, but they still make a lot of money in there. So that is very interesting infographic that I like to show. And this is information on re-exporting. Who re-exports the most is Germany. They re-export a lot of coffee. That's into money. So Germany do a lot of re-exporting, and who else? One of the country that start popping up is actually Dubai, UAE. They start consuming a lot more now. Not re-exporting, but consuming a lot more. There is a number on that. Talking about capita coffee consumption, you know why? Finland is number 1. 26 pounds. I don't know, that's a lot. 12 kilo, right? Per capita. The reason they drink a lot that in Scandinavia is because their country is sort of cold all the time. Very cold, very dark, very sleepy. When I fly there, I always get sleepy. I think it's because of, jet lag, but also the weather is very มันมืดอ่ะมันไม่สว่าง is always cloudy and cold. So if you want to get anything done in Scandinavia, you need coffee. Period. Otherwise, you don't get things done. People just keep sleeping. So Finland, Norway, Iceland, and Denmark, and Netherlands, Sweden. So wow, yes, coffee. Increasing a lot is 20% increase in Egypt. Okay. Consumption in Egypt jumped 27%, like almost 30%. And that is why right now in like UAE or, in the area, Middle East, they start to have World of Coffee there. They start to hosting a Dubai Coffee Fest. A lot of people go there, and a lot of people with money would just, buy all the geisha coffee, buy all the geisha natural processed coffee, buy everything expensive equipment, because that is one way to open a coffee shop, right? Expensive stuff, expensive equipment. Do they care about return on investment? I believe they care, but yeah, to get people to come, you need a trustable equipment and branding. So I think that's one way to do it. And the consumption increased a lot, like triple a lot. Asia and the Middle East are the fastest growing. In China, they drink a lot of coffee too. Not enough. They drink tea more. Tea is their main competitors, and coffee is start going up. Okay, I will break here. Tomorrow is very short on coffee farm, and if you guys already watched the video, it's good. นะครับผม สำหรับวันนี้ I think for today I'm done for the lecture. And if you want to stay, as P. Kamson mentioned, as P. Kamson already mentioned, that Cindy is here and they're gonna unbox the coffee. And if you guys want to see what is need to be unboxed and what is coded in the coffee, then we can take a look as well. Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Can I ask something? Yeah, just I'm interested to know if are we going to talk about the intercrops? Just curious about that, intercrops, growing different varieties with the coffee trees as well, if it's interesting or not, the risk or what benefits or something like that, because I hear about this topic sometime, but I'm not sure if it would be discussed or not, because this is a botany chapter today, right? So you were talking about the variety, but I'm not sure if we're going to...
we can discuss about it. Yeah, that's no problem. We can talk about farming. We can talk that tomorrow if you like, but it's not part of the green grading, right? So we focus on the green, and that.
Okay.
But intercropping is very helpful. It's good. It's very helpful, but you need to find the right varieties. Because when you intercropping, we call that selective breeding, right? Selective breeding. Because when you breeding something, it's not going to go according to plan all the time. Because when you breed, you have to study Mendel model. The model said 1, 2, 3, 4. There would be one that is different from the group. So you need to pick which traits do you want. Maybe you want to start intercropping like Marrageisha. You need to make sure it will be Marrageisha for the next 3 generations before you declare it's Marrageisha or Maracatura. You need to make sure it's like the 3rd generation before that's happened. Intercropping help. We do that a lot with Catura and hybrid Timor, make it Cat Timor, and that is the very first intercropping. We don't even have to talk about it because we do it all the time. What is the concern? Let me show you. What is your question?
it's not a concern, just people asking me if it's good or not or whatever. And the farm I know here, not so many people do that. So I don't have any, examples or real story to share about that. And so I'm wondering if it's really, I was wondering if it was really beneficial or not. I mean, maybe I can talk during the session next week. I can talk with Kamson and Kim, who know more about that, who know more farmers than me, and see if there's any case. But I was interested to know that, because that's often a question I have when I discuss with the the end customers, and that's something that I don't have knowledge about. So that's why I was wondering. Yeah.
Because intercropping is about breeding coffee that would produce whatever result that you are looking for, that would help you make your planting easier. I think that's pretty much it. We would talk, it's very brief in the green coffee, like very short, like 1 slide or 2 slides. That most of intercropping is based on production. They want quantity, not the quality. They just want a lot, easier to plant, more resistant to disease, produce more, can plant in a hotter climate. That is intercropping that we're doing this day. And everything in blue or purple, like right here that you see, these are intercrop. They are already breeding with Catimore. So this is the descendant, the niece, and the nephew of the Catimore coffee. So even though, like Castillo, I don't know, I tried Batien, everything else, Central Americano, I tried. Millennial, I also tried them. However, this coffee or intercrop that is designed to certain environment, certain climate, they do that all the time. Which is, well, it really depends on what the farmer wants and what the local authorities want. Some intercropping is not allowed. Like intercropping as, breeding together, right? When you talk about intercrop, breeding together or planting different tree in the same area, in the same farm.
I think
different tree.
Is
Okay.
Inter between the variety or cultivar, right? They growing together. Is the
so if you do intercropping as in
different
like maybe 4
cultivars
varieties
together,
okay.
Yeah.
So like in Thailand, they plant 4 variety of Robusta in the same farm. For example, the density of the coffee farm is like 400, right? Sorry, so this is a hybrid version coffee. Farming, let me show you. Farm world. Where is it? Where's my WCR? Nursery. Not sure. I'm not sure. Is this book or the other books? They will talk about that. And for example, Robusta, that we need to do a lot of, they have 4 variety because Robusta cannot breed between itself. So in Thailand, there would be 4 variety of Robusta in the same area, but it's like right next to each other. Variety 1, variety 2, variety 3, and variety 4. And then they repeat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to make sure that the coffee, when they start to germinate with each other, it would have some sort of mix between the coffee. So it is okay to do intercrop with the coffee, but intercrop with a different coffee. For example, in Thailand, they say, can you do Robusta with Tonyang, the rubber tree, which is a problem. Because both of these variety, both of the tree, they require the same nutrition from the ground. So intercropping, you need to pick a coffee that are harmonized with each other. Yes, that's supporting each other's.
Supporting or balance, okay.
Yes, aside from supporting the balance, you need to find a plant, a crop that will protect the baby coffee. Sometimes you need to protect the small coffee plant before they grow up as well. We did discuss that in the Zurich intercrop. Oh, not this one then. But are you what usually customer asks you about?
No, they're just curious about that. So yeah, there's no. I mean, I'm not specifically going to plan this, but yeah. So it took some time. Sorry.
No, it's good because
thank you.
That is something that should be careful, because if you plant intercrop them and then they are not compatible with each other, they would fight for the same resource of the food, and that would be the problem. Because in Thailand, for some reason, I don't know, some politicians say, hey, just go plant the coffee along with the rubber tree. And that's become a problem because the coffee and the rubber tree, they require the same, I don't know, potassium, I think, and the same sort of nutritions. So they're fighting against each other. And that Robusta coffee, they produce flower, but they are not able to sustain a red cherry because there's not enough nutrition.
Thank you.
No problem. I think there is one. Weed control. Yeah, we can do weed control and short-term crops. Shade sample. So look into the guide number 1, seed producer. Okay. So we'll tell you. Coffee, we want shade grown, by the way. We want a shade grown coffee that will help your coffee sweeter. What can I say? Because when you do shade grown, it will take longer for it to ripe. And when it takes longer, that's when fermentation is longer. Fermentation is longer, there's more complexity in the coffee. Okay. So that is good. What else? Cropping, pest and disease control. But another problem is some countries do not allow, for example, if you want intercrop between Arabica and Robusta, is no. It's not a good idea. If you plant Arabica and Robusta together at the same area, you might have a pest and disease control problems. Because Arabica will attract certain insects, but it's okay because Robusta is strong and disease resistant. So then it will go to the Arabica tree where it's not so strong, right? So that is also a problem. You have to be careful on that as well. Okay. Thank you. Good questions. What else do we have? Here, coffee burr disease. Wow. น่ากลัว ครับผม More questions today? พี่คำสอนมีอะไรเพิ่มเติมไหมครับ
ตอนนี้ไม่มีครับ เดี๋ยวผมก็แชร์ข้อมูลเอกสารบางอันนะในแชท
ดาวน์โหลดพี่เดี๋ยวดาวน์โหลดแล้วใส่เข้าไปดีกว่า
ถ้ามีใครสนใจเพราะว่า World Coffee Research เขาทำร่วมกับอินโดนีเซียเรื่องต้นไม้ที่เป็นร่มให้กาแฟการศึกษามานานสมควรและในลาวนี่เราก็เห็นมานานแล้วโดยเฉพาะผมเห็นกาแฟลิเบริก้านะหรือเอ็กเซนซ่านี่ส่วนมากเขาจะปลูกเป็นรั้วนะเป็นแนวกันแล้วก็มี
ใช่ไว้กันลมกันอะไรก็ได้
กันลมอันนี้ก็เห็นแต่ว่ากาแฟที่เห็นหลายบริษัทเขาจะพยายามทำเป็นล็อกแต่ละวาไรตี้โดยเฉพาะอาราบิก้าเพราะว่ามันติดพันเรื่อง การป้องกันเรื่องเปสแล้วก็
แมลงเนาะ
เรื่องการ mutation ด้วยนะแต่ว่าในของชาวสวนนี้เราก็เห็นกาแฟที่มันมีหลาย variety ที่ปนกัน มันก็เกิดการกลายพันธุ์ผสมพันธุ์แบบธรรมชาตินะเกิด mutation ด้วยนะที่จริงโรบูสต้าในลาวนี่มันก็มีการวิจัยอยู่มานาน และชาวสวนเขาจะรู้ดีว่าโรบูสต้าพันธุ์ไหนหรือว่า variety ใดที่มันให้ผลผลิตเยอะอันนี้เขาแต่ที่เราเห็นในสถาบันหรือว่าศูนย์วิจัยกาแฟในลาวนี้เขาจะมีประมาณ 4-5 variety ของโรบูสต้าที่มันเด่นแต่ว่าส่วนมากในเรียกว่าในกระแสเนาะกระแสของชาวสวนหรือว่าบริษัทนี้ส่วนมากเขาจะไปเน้นพวกอาราบิก้าเพราะว่าเขามีความเชื่อว่าโรบูสต้านี่ผลผลิตมันจะไม่ค่อยดีเท่ากับอาราบิก้าที่จริงทั้งราคาทั้งผลผลิตด้วยในลาวนะ
ทำไม
เพราะว่าโรบูสต้าส่วนมากในลาวนี่มันจะเป็นสวนเก่า
ครับ
แล้วก็
โอเค
ไม่ได้รับอาหารเพียงพอมันก็เลย productivity นี่มันก็เลยต่ำกว่า
เรื่องการจัดการส่วนนะพระเจ้าบอกคอยคือปลูกไปตามธรรมชาติตามมีตามเกิดนะแต่บ่มีการจัดการบ่มีการเฮ็ด pruning บ่มีการใส่ปุ๋ยใส่ไม่อย่างใดทั้งนั้นผลผลิตของโรบัสต้าก็เลยต่ำเพราะแล้วก็เรื่องราคานำมันถึกกว่าอาราบิก้า
แปลว่าต้นมันเก่าโอเค
ว่าเรื่องอินเตอร์ครอปเนาะ
ครับ
ปัจจุบันเขาก็มีการศึกษาคือกันเนาะมันก็มีอยู่สหกรณ์ CPC นี่เขาก็ได้เฮ็ดร่วมกับศิรัตน์แล้วมีเฮ็ด research เนาะเกี่ยวกับshade tree list of shade trees variety นั่นได้ที่เหมาะสมเนาะคือการนั้นแบบว่ามันบ่แม่นว่าทุกต้นไม้ที่สามารถปลูก associate กับกาแฟได้เนาะมีบทเรียนศิรัตน์เรื่องปลูกเรื่อง intercrop อีกสำหรับเรื่อง diversify เรื่อง income เนาะเป็นต้นกล้วยบ่ต้นไม้ไหหมากบ่ก็มีเนาะตัวนี้
ใช่
คือว่านั่นดีเนาะเรื่องอันนั้นราคาเขาสิบอกราคากาแฟกลางนี่มันราคามันคือว่าปกติได้แต่ว่าผลผลิตมันน้อยซื่อๆเนาะผลผลิตมันบ่ได้ย้อนว่ามันขาดการบริหารจัดการคือบอกว่าน่ะแต่ว่าเรื่อง price นี่มันคือว่า stable ได้ถ้าสมเทียบใส่กาแฟอาราบิก้าเนาะอันนี้นี่ยอมรับเนาะความต้องการก็สูงคันว่าอาราบิก้าโรบัสต้าลาวนี่ความต้องการเนี่ยมีความต้องการสูงของตลาดเนาะอันนี้บทเรียนนั้นของ CPC ที่บริษัทมาดองโกบริษัทอื่นเขาต้องการโรบัสต้า
ครับ
แต่โรบัสต้าของเขาเจ้าก็ต้องได้ process แนวใดนำบ่แม่นว่าโรบัสต้าแบบ natural แท้ๆได้เนาะบัดนะมันต้องผ่านprocess ที่เขาต้องการ
ดีเลยครับ
นี่ดิมีต้นกล้วยฮู้ในการ
ใช่มีต้นกล้วยก็คือมันก็ปลูกกันแหละเนาะคือถ้าเกิดจะปลูกเขาก็กังวลเรื่องของราก
ก็ต้องรู้ว่ามักพริกไทย
รากมันเป็นยังไงรากมันกระทบกันหรือเปล่าเวอร์ชันไหนเป็นรากแบบไหนกล้วยให้ความสูงเท่าไหร่ใช้แร่ธาตุอะไรมันต้องวางแผนเยอะมากเลยนะครับผมเพื่อให้มันไม่แย่งกันนะครับผมให้เขาอยู่ด้วยกันได้ทีนี้กาแฟที่เรารู้สึกว่าอร่อยที่สุดมันเป็นกาแฟที่ไม่ได้อินเตอร์ครอปนะมันเป็นกาแฟที่อยู่ในป่าแบบกาแฟไทยมีพี่คนหนึ่งเขาส่งกาแฟมาให้เราเนี่ยเป็นกาแฟจากป่าไปเก็บมามันหอมมากเลยมันหอมกว่ากาแฟที่เราไปเก็บมาทั่วไปอ่ะแบบเหมือนหรือฟาร์มมิ่งหรืออะไรก็แล้วแต่ก็ไม่รู้ว่าทำไมกาแฟป่ามันถึงจะหอมกว่าชาวบ้านเขาได้ฟลอรัลได้อะไรเยอะมากเลยครับในกาแฟล็อตนั้นก็เดี๋ยวรอดูว่าพี่เขาทำอะไรบ้างขอบคุณครับโอเคผมโอเคนะมีใครมีคำถามอะไรบ้างนะครับผมหรือว่าเราจะไม่งั้นเราจะเบรกตรงนี้เอาไว้ก่อนนะครับผมแล้วก็ให้ซินดี้เริ่มเข้ามาอันบ็อกซ์กับพี่คำสอนนะครับผม สำหรับทุกท่านวันนี้ผมขอขอบคุณทุกท่านก่อนนะครับว่าเราค่อนข้างจะลุยกันมาถึง5 โมงพรุ่งนี้ก็จะลุยกันอีกนะครับอีกเซสชันนึงสำหรับ Green Coffee Green Coffee ก็จะเหลือแค่บอทนี่นิดหน่อยแต่ว่าส่วนใหญ่ก็เลยจะคุยเรื่องของการเทรดดิ้งกาแฟแต่ถ้าเกิดพวกเราไม่ได้มีใครเทรดกาแฟเยอะเราก็จะคุยเรื่องนั้นแค่นิดเดียวพอไม่ได้คุยอะไรเยอะมากครับผมเราจะไปในเรื่องของการคัดเมล็ดกาแฟหรือดีเฟกต์ของกาแฟให้มากขึ้นนะครับเข้าใจเรื่องของเทรดดิ้งกาแฟให้เร็วขึ้นโอเคครับผมโอเค
ครับ
โอเคถ้าอย่างนั้นสำหรับคลาสนี้เดี๋ยวเราถ่ายสกรีนแคปตอนจบนิดนึงแล้วก็ continue our unboxing experience ถ้าใครอยากจะดูวิธีโคดดิ้งที่เราโคดดิ้งไปนะก็จะสนุกมากเลยโอเคพร้อมนะคะ1 2เรียบร้อยครับผมขอบคุณครับโอเคเดี๋ยวผมจะให้ขอบคุณค่ะพี่เซรีนะขอบคุณทุกคนนะครับใครอยู่ต่อก็อยู่ต่อนะใครไม่อยู่ก็เดี๋ยวค่อยเจอกันนะครับผมอีกทีนึงพรุ่งนี้ครับสวัสดีครับผมเดี๋ยวเราจะอัดวิดีโอต่อ
จะอัดต่อใช่ไหม
ใช่เดี๋ยวผมอัดต่อแต่เดี๋ยวผมกดเบรกอันนี้ก่อนแล้วกดอัดอีกอันหนึ่ง